and they get before creation, and some of them see it all. They see the benevolent, creative expression of all things that we call God, this magnificent oneness of a being that expresses itself in all things, and they look and they're just in awe. What an amazing, wonderful, loving creation. And then they remember, oh, that's me. That's me. I'm God.
And I am the Ascension coach, James Valentine, here with an interviewee that I've been chomping at the bit to have a conversation with ever since I've heard many of his interviews that he has on YouTube. His name is David Such. He has researched NDEs for over 16 years now. I'll let him correct me when he speaks if I've got the years off. Researched NDEs for over 16 years. He's studied over 1,200 cases. He is the author of, and I love this title, God Took My Clothes. We got to ask him why he chose that title. And he is a certified spiritual counselor, helping souls who have had NDEs or out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings. I could have used him twice before now, but I'm excited to invite to Awakening to Love, Mr. David Such. David, how are you today?
I'm doing great, James. Thank you so much for having me on your show today.
Absolutely. So let's get right into it. What led you? Well, actually, let's start here. Who were you before you began to study NDEs?
Well, I was a born-again Christian, I guess you could say, and I was sure about everything because all the answers were right there in the Bible, what the church told me to interpret, how they said to interpret it. So I didn't have any questions. And a painful and chronic condition, chronic tendonitis throughout my whole body, kind of led me down a dark path. And after 8 years of worsening pain and spending tens of thousands of dollars with, over 20, 30 doctors, something crazy like that, nobody could heal me. I spent 3 years in a mobility scooter because if I was on my feet for 10 minutes, I'd get a week of pain. So I had to use a mobility scooter just to go to Walmart. And I since healed. I'm walking 5 miles with my wife, but it was during that time where I kind of lost faith in God, because it says in the Bible, ask and it will be given, whatever you ask for in prayer and all that. And I had been prayed for by at least a dozen churches, hundreds of people, maybe more, there were like prayer chains. It might've been thousands. I don't know. And no healing, when I thought I did get the healing eventually. And I thought, well, one of two things is going on. Either there is no God. I didn't think that was right. Or I thought, I'm a bad Christian. He doesn't care about me. I'm the son he's embarrassed of, because I've sinned or I've misbehaved or I've done bad things and all that. So it was during that very depressing time. I clicked on a YouTube video about an atheist who died, saw the afterlife and came back. And that started me on a 17-year journey. So you're correct in what you said. It's over 16. So 17-year journey now. It's going to be coming up on 18 soon. And I stopped counting when I wrote my book. So at that time, the second edition, I think it was around 700 or something like that. And by now it's probably over 1,200, 1,500. I don't know. I just kind of estimated it. I'm an engineer. So I calculate. I'm like, I hear about 3-4 a week now. I get spiritual counseling. I hear through that. So I don't know the exact number, but it's a lot. They all tell the same story of love. So that's the good news.
What led you? Okay, so that experience led you to NDEs. What led you to go, you know what? I need to study this. I need to find out what this is all about. What's the thread that runs through these experiences? What was really going on in that moment?
Well, I worked in sales engineering at that time. And so I'd gone through training on how to spot a lie. And this first testimony that I ever heard, it was just a video testimony on YouTube, 2007, when YouTube was fairly new. And he didn't display any of the physical signs of lying. Matter of fact, it was the opposite. He displayed just about every sign of somebody who was being genuine. And this guy didn't believe at all. And I'd been taught, well, if you don't believe in God, you're going to hell. And he didn't. I mean, he ended up in heavenly realm. And, they said, we don't make mistakes. You belong here with us and all that. And it just sounded so fascinating. I thought I have to find out more about this. And probably the thing that really attracted to me the most is the way they talk about it. They talk about it like it's the best experience of their life. It's the all, it's the everything to have this otherworldly experience where there's this love that's so strong that even the word love is laughable at trying to describe it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
happy. Think of the 100 happy moments of your life, put them all into one moment. Yeah, you don't come close to what it's like to be there. It's that good.
Yeah.
And of course, people don't want to come back, and sometimes they get depressed. So it was that otherworldly aspect to it that really attracted me. And then I started hearing things that made a lot more sense, that, oh, okay, that's what the Bible meant when it said that, or that's what the Quran says, and that's what the Torah says, because there's wisdom in all these religions. There's spiritual information, and just things started to make a lot more sense. And of course, when you look into the eyes of a soldier, who's all muscular and tattooed up, and he starts crying when he talks about the beauty and love of heaven, that kind of tends to convince you they're not making up stories,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I wanted to know more, so I just kept studying. And then when I started writing the book, people would open up to me because they knew I was going to believe their testimony, and that really helped.
How has this research changed you?
Oh, it's changed every aspect of my life. So before, I was very judgmental. I still had some judgmentalness, and my guides
Yeah.
that kind of talk to me, they kind of show me where and all that. They never condemn, but I was very
Yeah.
judgmental, very black and white, not accepting of people with other ideas. If you were in another religion, you were a pagan. And then I didn't care about nature. It was a resource to be exploited. And now I realize nature's alive. And probably the most important thing is that the fact that we're all connected, right? So down here
Yeah.
on planet Earth, we have just an illusion of separateness, but it's only an illusion. We're more connected than separate. So when you harm one individual, you harm everyone, because we're all connected. And when you
Yeah.
help an individual, you help everyone. That's why, you'll hear things from near-death experiencers. One person living unconditional love is more powerful than millions living in fear. Or if you bring hope or joy to just one soul, millions benefit from that because of this connection.
Yeah.
So I learned about the importance of the way we treat other people, our thoughts, our words, just being kind, considerate, compassionate towards others, replace the cutthroat competition with cooperation based on love for the family of humanity, that kind of thing. And of course, I still make as many mistakes as any other human being, spiritual or lay person or atheist or whatever, but everybody has different levels of love that they achieve. But it's a goal now. And it even healed my relationship with my family. I'm just a lot more calm, peaceful. I have no fear of death. I'm looking forward to it as something exciting, even though I value this life down here. We're doing a really important job, so important to extend life down here, but no fear of the end. You go home and you're young and alive and rejuvenated. And it's as easy as waking up from a dream. So it's changed every aspect of my life.
From your research, what actually happens after we die?
Well, a very similar analogy is waking up from a dream. When you're in your dream world, having a dream, maybe a nightmare, it seems real to you. I mean, really real. And you're scared and stuff, or maybe you're seeing something good, and you're happy. And then you wake up and you realize how unreal your dream world was. And you might have been having a bad dream where it was really difficult. Some people have really tough lives. And it's just like that. You wake up and it's like, oh, I'm back. I remember now. This is where I came from. That was only a temporary adventure I had. So it's like taking a huge step up to a new level of consciousness. And you feel more real, more alive than you ever felt in your life. Your clarity, your thought is heightened. You can think much faster, much more logically. Your emotions are all heightened. Even your senses are heightened. People can report in the first level of heaven that's kind of laid out like Earth. They can look at a mountaintop 100 miles away and count all the petals on the flower. And then they can zoom in and see the molecular structure of it. And of course, there's 3 primary colors here on Earth: red, blue, and yellow, that form all the colors we see. In that first level of heaven, that's sort of describable. The higher levels are more magnificent and wonderful and describable. And that level sort of laid out like Earth, there's over 80 primary colors. And so just the colors are a buffet for the senses. And of course, there's that feeling of love and peace and purposefulness and safety. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember I'm immortal. Nothing's ever going to happen to me. That was just a little adventure I had. And of course, you meet dead relatives that thought were gone, grandparents and things like that. And the hearing is wonderful too. It's not used for communication because there's a mind-to-mind communication, but the hearing's used for the beautiful music of heaven. And probably the best description of that comes from Don Piper's book, 90 Minutes in Heaven. I put a quote about the music in my book as well. So his book's a good read, and he describes the music of heaven. But yeah, it's just a wonderful place of joy, peace, purposefulness, fun. They have a lot of fun up there. And then after a long break, it's like when you go on a vacation or hiking in the mountains for a week, you're going to take a long break before you do that again, because it's kind of tough, physical lives are kind of tough, especially Earth. So after a long break, you go, hey, that was really tough, but wow, I got to do that again. I learned so much. I grew so much, so that's how the afterlife is. It's going back home. It's remembering. It's going back to be with family and being back to the comfort of home. No tears, no pain, no sorrow, no sadness, just a blissful existence.
I love that. I love that. I was reading a Joe Dispenza book where he talked about every color has a frequency.
Yes.
And he said for Earth, violet is the highest frequency for us. And so I've heard the NDE, because I've obviously I've not done 1200. I've probably more like 20. So, but in some of the NDEs, they describe the colors, and I'm just like, that makes sense, because they're at a higher frequency. They're going to experience different colors that exceed the frequencies of colors that we experience here. So that's one of the things that I'm really looking forward to. I just want to see the myriad of colors that you described, that I've heard some of my NDE interviews describe. Yeah, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. So
I'm looking forward to the gardens, because I'm a big fan of nature. I just love botanical gardens and flowers and all that. I must be one of the few straight guys in the world that's a real sucker for flowers. So I've heard about these flowers. There's all these colors that don't exist here on Earth, and then they glow with their own light, and they make these tones and they sing. And the gardens of heaven are just supposed to be spectacular. So for those of you who don't know, Yosemite National Park is a beautiful park in Southern California with waterfalls. Well, it's mid-California, I think, waterfalls and valleys, and, it used to be a glacier area. And people come from all over the world to see it. It's one of the most beautiful parks in the world. I remember this one guy says, yeah, I saw this beautiful park in heaven. And he says, well, how beautiful? And like Yosemite? And he goes like this, maybe like 100 times more beautiful than Yosemite. We can't imagine that. So I'm looking forward to seeing the beautiful parks and gardens and the flowers of heaven.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of did this. And obviously there's almost at times, no two cases that are the same.
No.
But can you walk us through a typical NDE experience, the best you can? Because obviously, we've heard 1,200 cases. You've heard 1,200 cases, and they're all, some aspect of them is different than the others. But just as much as you can.
Yeah. Now, every near-death experience is going to be different for just the same reason that every vacation is going to be different that you take, right? So every person wants to see something different, or maybe they want to experience something different. So every near-death experience is different. It gives the near-death experiencer a combination of what they need, because some of those are planned, and it's to get them back on track, and a combination of where the person's going to feel comfortable. Now, some people need a painful experience to make them change their ways, so they'll have a negative NDE, but there are many common elements, even though they're all unique and tailored for the person. And the first is, there's no time. So a person dies at the scene of an accident, or maybe a surgery gone wrong in the hospital, and they find themselves outside of their body, looking from above. If they were in pain, they're instantly pain-free, feeling quite young and energetic, just full of energy and life. They can hear the thoughts and feel the emotions of the human beings that they're looking at. And sometimes they realize they're dead. Sometimes when they look at their own body from above, they don't recognize it, because they say, we always see ourselves in 2D, like a TV screen or a picture or something like that. And then, of course, after an accident, you're going to look different. And sometimes they don't recognize. Others do recognize themselves. They try talking to people. Nobody can hear them. Now, that's not because you're a ghost. People ask these near-death experiences, were you like a ghost? And they're, no, you're the opposite of a ghost. You feel more real, more alive. It's just that human beings that are lower frequency, and if you're not on the same frequency, just like a walkie-talkie or a CB, you're not going to talk. So you're in a higher frequency realm, And so they can't hear or see. And then at some point, that's the most common, and then they're revived and they go back into their body. Now, the less common ones, they turn around off to the side or behind them or something. They notice a light and they get attracted to that light. They describe moving faster than the speed of light towards this light. It gets big and beautiful. Now, some come in the heavenly gardens, others meet relatives or spirit guides, some meet God or religious figures. But they describe a light 10,000 times brighter than the sun, not at all harmful to the eyes. They describe this amazing, overwhelming, tangible love. A lot of them cry when they're there. Some remember being home, oh, I'm back home. It's very familiar. And then some are given a life review where they go through your whole life from the beginning to end, and they show you how you affected others. There's no judgment, but okay, when you said this is how these people around you feel. And it's not like they just tell you, you become every person you ever interacted with. You kick a dog in your life review, you're going to be right there again, kicking the dog, but you're going to be the dog experiencing the pain of the kick, maybe experiencing the confusion. What did I do? This owner who I love, he's my only friend. He gives me all my food. Why is he kicking me? You might experience all that, good or bad. And they show us these live reviews for one purpose, and that is to show us the importance of being loving, kind, and considerate, treating others with compassion and respect the way we would want to be treated. And then sometimes there's a decision. Sometimes they say to the person, you've accomplished your goals, so you can stay, but if you want to go back and do more work, these are the benefits. And of course, if I heard the testimony, they decided to come back. Others are just told, no, you have to go back. You're not done. Now, some people think that's control. They're mad or whatever. No, it's because we plan our lives up there before we come. And we say, I want to do all these things. If I die beforehand, send me back. Because once you're there after being on Earth, you don't want to go back. If you're climbing Mount Everest and you're freezing your butt off and you're exhausted and all of a sudden you're transported back home for a second in the warmth in front of a fire, you're not going to want to go back. No, make me go back. I want to get to the top of the mountain. I want to meet my goals. And so, it's not control, but that's basically the main stuff. The common elements are meeting dead relatives, meeting spirit guides, meeting religious figures, God, Jesus, Buddha. I mean, they've met all sorts of people. One guy he was a big fan of the Apostle Peter. So he says, I met Peter in heaven, and Peter probably appeared. You can appear any way you want in heaven, but Peter probably appeared like he was on earth, like a fisherman, right? He says, I met Peter. Right. He was a bit shaggy looking. Which I thought was hilarious. So that's the basic overview of a near-death experience. They come back, they're changed completely. Whatever they were chasing before in their lives, whether it was money or a career or a hobby or a relationship or whatever, that may continue, but it takes a back seat. And now their new priority is serving humanity and focusing on loving, meaningful relationships and showing love to their fellow man and making a contribution that's valuable to planet Earth and the people on it and all of nature in some cases. So that's the basic overview and the after effects.
What I find very fascinating, David, is that we experience, or NDEs experience, a environment that they're familiar with and that's comfortable for them. Like the garden. Like I had a woman who she grew up on a farm. That's what she experienced when she went on the other side. This farm. You mentioned person with Peter. But the religious, this is what fascinated me the most. I was a Christian minister for about 20 years. Oh, wow. So I'm sure I'm going to meet Jesus at some point. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
a lot of people meet him, even atheists. Yeah.
Yeah. But that other people will meet Muhammad, will meet, some of the Hindu gods. That's the what resonates with us is what makes us more comfortable and all that will be. That's one thing that fascinates me. It's just not one specific experience, but the experience specific to us, which fascinates me. I had a lady who, I think I just posted hers, who had an NDE where after her life review, she was shown 6 past lives. And in one of those past lives, she was a young slave girl. But then she says, in a moment, she experienced herself as the slave master. And I thought that that was so incredible. And it lines up with kind of what you just said, in that it wasn't so much the life review. I don't know, maybe it was an extension of her life review, but she talked about six past lives. There's two things she brought out in that. She brought out that she continued to experience past lives where she's working out fear. Like she's working out fear in these past lives. And so she comes back, comes back, comes back, still working this out, maybe releasing more and more, integrating more and more. But what you said about the life review where we experience I remember I listened to you today and I said, that is in alignment with the belief that we are consciousness, that obviously we're not this body, that everything is happening within us and that we're projecting it out.
Yes.
So I know Neville Goddard talks about everyone is you pushed out. I can see us feeling that because that is us. That's just a holographic image or projection of what we are holding in our own consciousness. And so that experience, even this experience, is us. And so that is like that's I can see why that makes so much sense, that I can feel that because that's me, and I guess that speaks to oneness, that we're all one. I'm you, you're me. We're just different expressions of the sum of the same consciousness. Um, I don't know if you want to touch on that before I go to the next one, but yeah, that's what came up for me.
Yeah, that's one of the big shockers in some of these testimonies. These people die, and
Yeah,
here it is, little old human being, an insignificant little speck of nothingness almost in the universe. And they get before creation, and some of them see it
yeah,
all. They see the benevolent, creative expression of all things that we call God, this
yeah,
magnificent oneness of a being that expresses itself in all things. And they look and they're just in awe. What an amazing, wonderful, loving creation. And then they remember, oh, that's me. That's
yeah,
me. I'm
yeah,
God.
yeah.
And I just am playing the
Yes,
part of this, going to a tiny little part of myself and looking back at the
yes,
rest so I can learn and grow, pretending to be
yes.
just this little. I'm going to take my piece of my consciousness and I'm going to put it in this little part of me. And then I'm going to look at all the other pieces of consciousness of me and interact. And that's how we grow and learn, through contrast. Yeah.
It's
Consciousness
so
learns through
incredible.
contrast. That's how it learns and grows. So there's an illusion of separateness or a limitation of perspective. And then you look back at the rest. So like, okay, so if you wanted to get to know yourself, you would really think about what you like and what you don't like and all that. But what's missing? If you really want to get to know yourself, you would have to become every person around you and see how
Yeah,
they saw you. And
yeah,
then you would know yourself better than anything. What do you think we're
yeah.
doing? We're all little pieces of God getting to know ourselves.
That's it. That's it. You also hinted, well, you touched on this briefly, but I want to go into this a little bit more because this is something that really was impactful for me. Aaron Thomas Green, I interviewed him, NDE, and he gave a very detailed description of pre-birth, that we are planning our body, our height, our parents. I'm sure you and I as a soul got together and said, okay, at this time, we're going to have an interview where we're going to help expand the consciousness of humanity. Why do you think, or from what you've researched, why do you think we pick hard experiences?
Well, certainly human beings do this to themselves all the time. Now, there's no need to choose a hard experience, just like when a human being goes through their lifetime, there's no need for them to challenge themselves physically, is there?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah,
law saying
no,
I've got to exercise or see how fast I can ride a bike from A to B or see how fast I can
yeah,
run or how far or how much weight I can lift, but they do it all the time. Why? Because when you challenge yourself, you grow.
yeah,
When you experience that which you do not desire, it strengthens that which you do desire.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
learn and grow
yeah,
through contrast. So think about it this way, a little analogy. How do you appreciate good food? Let's say you're a child born to parents who own one of the finest five-star restaurants in the world. People come from all over the world to eat this restaurant. They rave about how good the food is. You've been eating
Yeah.
every meal there since the day you could chew. To you, it just tastes like normal food. How are you going to appreciate it? How are you going to enjoy it the way they do? Well, you can do it
Yeah.
fast through suffering. Don't eat for 3 days. Doesn't matter what
Yeah.
you eat. You can eat a dry piece of toast. It's going to taste really good. It's going to be the best meal of your
Right.
life. The food in the
Right.
restaurant, my God, it's going to taste like a king's buffet. And of course, if you want to do it slower, you just go out and you eat normal food, normal mediocre restaurants for a year. So
Yeah.
some people choose higher levels of suffering because they're the fast learners. They're like, I want to learn. I want to get there faster. Then there's no right or wrong. If I want to go
Right.
from where I am to right now to a mile away, I can take a nice leisurely walk. It's going to take me 25 minutes, but it's going to take me more
Yeah.
time. But it's relaxing. Now, if I want to get there fast, I got to sprint, and I'm going to be out of breath, and my legs are going to be hurting, and I'm going to be breathing heavy. My heart's going to be pounding, and I'm sweating, and but I made a lot of progress fast, and there's no right or
Right.
wrong. You can choose a difficult life. You can choose an easier life. So, we see these people that we think are the successful people. They're born into these
Hmm.
great families, loving families. They're given a good education. They make a lot of money, and they do philanthropy. They help, and they get involved in city councils and charities, and then they have a great family themselves with kids, and they're wonderful, and their kids are a great success, and they never struggle and never have any health problems, and they're happy their whole lives, and they die, and we go, wow, what a great success story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it
Yeah.
is. Any life on earth is a huge learning experience, but you know what those guys are doing? Those are souls taking a break. Oh, I did 5 hard lifetimes. I spent an entire lifetime being abused as a slave girl. I'm taking a
Yeah.
breather this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Those are souls taking it easy. Yeah. They wanted the huge learning
I,
experience of Earth, but I don't want to go for oh, yeah, no, I'll take it easy.
I love that explanation, and that answers a question that one of the people in my community had. I think he's in another country, and he talked about how the princess or whatever, how is it that they have such a great life or whatever. But that makes sense. And I tell you where I'm at now, David. I'm in a place now where when I see souls, maybe in a wheelchair, or I see souls maybe on a corner and they're asking for loose change, I go, they are speeding up their evolution. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
almost like when Jesus said, "The first shall be last, and the last shall be first." Those that we think are at such a disadvantage on a soul level, they are, for lack of a better word, superheroes because they've chosen to have this experience for rapid evolution of their souls. And I just my whole view and perspective has changed. And I even look at my own life, but just as because I look at everyone as a soul, going, oh, this soul chose to have this experience. Like David, the soul chose to have this experience. James, the soul chose to. So it's really fascinating when you look at it. When we think those who are advantaged, they may be on vacation, and that's an awesome, that's an awesome thing. But it's for me, it's really looking at these souls who seem disadvantaged that you really understand. No, they're not on the soul level.
Yeah,
So
near-death experiences are often told what you human beings think is a great success to heaven is kind
yeah,
of a failure. And what you think often is a
wow,
great failure to heaven is a great success. And I'll give you an example. This one guy, he was a businessman, very successful businessman, and he died, had a near-death experience, came back. And while he was up there, they were explaining this to them, and he said, well, can you give an example or something like that? And they said, sure. So they bring him back down in spirit form to Earth, and they take him
right,
to the front of his office building where he came out every day. And they showed him the homeless guy who would sit outside of the office building every day and beg for change, the homeless drunk. The guy was an alcoholic. And they said, well, what do you
mm,
think of this guy? And he says, well, it's kind of sad. He's wasted his life. He's just a homeless alcoholic, and he takes any money he gets, probably buys more booze with it. But he's here every day, and sometimes we give him a little, sometimes we give him some food or money, and they say, okay. The angel says, let me show you who this really is. And they
wow,
let him see the spirit underneath. And it was this huge, noble, pure, angelic spirit that had chosen this tough life for a major purpose of showing compassion, teaching the businessmen compassion and charity as they came out of
Wow.
this building. No judgment,
Wow.
just compassion for this guy who was suffering.
That's
You know?
that is incredible. And you know who instantly comes to mind for me? Stephen Hawkins.
Oh, yeah.
That's that soul. My goodness. That to have that experience. But you often you mentioned something a few times that I often bring out in my teachings and the contrast. Like I have to experience what I'm not so I can more fully understand what I am. And so, as a healer as well, I talk about sometimes sickness in the body. Like I remember even Jesus one time, uh, there was someone that was brought to him that was maybe born blind, and they said, "Who sinned, his parents or him?" He said, "Neither one, but so that the glory of God can be revealed."
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to at times, or maybe all the time, have to experience contrast to better understand that I'm not the body, that I'm infinitely greater than what I'm experiencing. And you brought that out. I even think you gave an example. And as you said, I said I have that in my notes. But yeah, that contrast is important. And can you, I don't know, speak a little bit more about how important contrast is?
Well, it's somehow when we go through experiences makes us a better person. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple examples, and if I forget the second one, don't let me forget. It's King's Son from my book, but let's go through first one. So we
Hmm.
know that gratitude is a very powerful energy. It's a magnet or a generator of abundance of the thing that we're grateful for. So
Yeah.
let's look at two scenarios. A wealthy billionaire who eats the finest foods. He grew up in a wealthy family, with five-star chefs cooking in the kitchen of his own mansion of his family, and he's eaten nothing but fine foods his whole life. He once bit into a fast food hamburger and he tossed it aside. I can't eat this garbage, right? So he goes to
Hmm.
his favorite restaurant, okay, and he has his favorite meal at this five-star restaurant. Now he's going to enjoy that meal, isn't he? He's going to be grateful. Now
Yeah.
let me give you a
Yeah.
second man. Second man is poor. He grew up on the streets of Haiti, struggling to survive. He now has a wife and 3 children, and times are hard. And he hasn't been able to find regular work. He only gets odd jobs here and there. And sometimes his family and him go without eating. And it's been 2 days and they haven't had a bit of food. And he gets this little side job, enough to bring a small bag of rice and beans home. And they
Yeah.
cook it up and they eat that bland rice and beans. No salt, no pepper, no butter, no flavorings of any kind. They eat
Yeah.
this very bland meal. Now, it is hard or impossible for that billionaire to muster the kind of gratitude that the poor Haitian man has in finally feeding
Yeah.
his family and after 2 days.
Yeah.
And his gratitude is stronger. And so it's going to create more of the good feelings and the higher vibrations that we want to grow.
Yeah.
And
That,
now I'll tell you the story of the king's son. It can
okay.
also help us with empathy for others. So this is a story in my book. And there was once a very wealthy king, a benevolent king. He was good to the people in his kingdom, really cared about the poor farmer subjects of his kingdom and tried to do it best he could. He kept his luxuries to a real minimal because he cared about, taking care of the people of his kingdom. But he did live the good life being king. And so when his son is born, his son's got the royal servants obeying his every command, fulfilling his every wish. And the son kind of grows up spoiled, doesn't really care about the subjects too much. And the king realizes this son is unfit to be king. He cares nothing
Yeah.
about the subjects. He's just spoiled. He's kind of narcissistic. He's always ordering the servants around. He's just only thinks about himself. So when the king's second son is born, he takes him to a family of poor farmers and he says, "You are to raise the prince as if he were your own son," never telling him that he is a prince. And on his 18th birthday, I will return. He's going to rule the kingdom. So that young prince grows up on the farm. He learns to rely on his adopted brothers and sisters. Long, hard hours of back-breaking work. He's got a tough life. Sometimes they're short on food. Sometimes when the situation is particularly bleak, the king sends his men in the night to leave food on the doorstep. And then when that son turned 18, the king came and got him and told him, "You're prince, and you're going to rule this kingdom." And that prince became a benevolent king, even more so than his father, because he had suffered as the poor in his kingdom suffer. He had heartfelt compassion and empathy for them. And he even said please and thank you to the servants in the castle and was grateful for every royal meal he ate. Now, there's even a movie, 1987 movie, Overboard, that talks about this idea. But a tough situation can change us for the better. And that's what these lives are. If it weren't for these tough lives incarnating, the bubble of love of heaven couldn't continue to exist and grow if it weren't for souls that incarnated into physical existences and other souls who experience contrast on the other side of the veil in various ways that we don't understand. But it's God's consciousness experiencing contrast, which helps it grow and develop and become more amazing and beautiful and more loving.
So beautifully described. Like that was I love that explanation, that picture you painted for us in that way. I just have two last things. This is something that comes up in my community a lot. I haven't had a chance to do a video around it yet, but it's going back to pre-birth and the planning of our lives. A lot of the people are asking, well, where's free will coming in? If all my life is pretty much planned out, obviously, we're not going, oh, okay, on this moment, I'm gonna go across the street and go to this. Like these major moments in our lives are pre-planned. Where does free will come in at? Or is that kind of like, I know what this result is gonna be based on this action, and so that's how I'm like, how does that, from your view and what you've heard, how does that factor in?
Oh, you're not allowed to deviate from the plan one bit. It's like they got strings, on a puppet. Yeah, 100% control. No, the highest law of spirituality, I'm joking, of course. The highest law of spirituality, one of the highest or the highest, I'm not sure, it might be the highest. Some people say it's the highest, is free will. So the human being always has free will. So it's like a vacation itinerary. You plan out a vacation. You say, okay, I'm going to take a Europe vacation. I'm going to go to Paris and spend 3 days there. And then I'm going to go to south of France. And then I'm going to go to Italy. And you plan it all out, right? So you plan the major events. And then you fill in a lot of details when you get there. Now, just like on a vacation, the human being always has free will. You can get to Paris and say, you know what? I don't like Europe at all. I'm going to Tahiti. It happens, but it's not that common. People tend to follow the plan. And there's options in that plan. Hey, we're going to spend 3 days in Nice. And if we don't like it, we'll move on to Italy earlier. If we really like it, we'll stay an extra day. Right. So there's little variations. If life's going well, I'm going to live an extra 10 years and do more work. If I'm done early and I'm kind of having a hard time physically, I'm going to exit here. So they make all these plans, but the human being can always 100% deviate from every part of the plan. And there's no judgment from heaven. And even if you deviate 100%, you might not learn what you wanted to learn or accomplish what you wanted to accomplish, but any lifetime on earth, negative or positive, good or bad, whether you meet your goals or not, is a huge learning experience. It's always beneficial. Huge jump in consciousness and growth. In fact, for every human body here, there's 100 souls that want to have a life because it's so good in terms of learning and growing. And so it's a desired thing, but it's also one of the hardest planets in the entire universe. One of the top 3. Hardest in this galaxy, in the top 3 of the universe. So you got to be an expert soul at incarnations to come to Earth. You are like the Mount Everest of hikers. You're doing the granddaddy of physical incarnations. So, I have clients and stuff, my spiritual counseling, and I did this myself sometimes. Oh man, why is life so tough? You're climbing Mount Everest, man. Of course it's going to be tough. You wanted to do this. And then when you do it, God, you climb Mount Everest, that's something like people are talking about. Wow, Grandpa Joe, he climbed Mount Everest when he was a younger man. And this is something that goes with you for the rest of your life. It's like this big thing. You graduated Earth. Holy cow. You're an amazing daredevil expert soul. That's how they look at us.
Absolutely. You brought up well, when you hearing you say that reminds me of, because I've had two pre-birth memories, and
Hmm.
they didn't just come up when I started doing this. I actually had them earlier in life, and I just remember them. One was I was shown, I guess one of my guys, and we haven't had a chance to talk about that yet, but I had one of my guys show me two houses. One was kind of broken down and, a fixer-upper, and the other one was very opulent. And I was given the choice, what path do you want to choose? Do you want to choose this opulent path, or do you want to? And this is even a part of who I am today. Like I chose the fixer upper because I was like, I can make this happen. I can overcome this, and that's been the story of my life. The other one is I remember looking at Earth, and from where I was at, I felt the weight and the heaviness of going to this place. And it was easy to like it was easy to feel the difference between where I was at versus where I was going. And yeah, like it takes a lot to take on this experience of being here in Earth as a soul. But obviously, the reward is much greater once is great once you accomplish whatever you've come here to accomplish. But yeah, I can remember those experiences very vividly. Actually, even some of my past lives. Actually, um, I don't know if you want to touch on that, but the other thing I wanted to bring out, or have you bring out, because I heard you say this, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was around karma. You said karma doesn't have to. I don't know if I'm quoting you exactly, but you said karma doesn't have to be followed like it used to be. I have that in quotes, so you must have said that in quotes. Please
Yes.
explain for us.
Okay. So karma is a tool, and it's not like a punishment, like, oh, I did something bad to that person, so now something bad's going to happen to me. That's revenge, that's punishment, and that's a
Right,
human
right,
concept. That's not
right,
from heaven. So it's a tool to
right,
kind of work through both sides of the energy. I don't understand karma very well, but I know it's a tool, and I know because we're in a new place in space and sort of a new energy and a new paradigm in our spiritual development, there is ways to work through the energy without having to go through both sides of it. So before, if I experienced being a king, abusing my poor peasant subjects, I would then, to round out the energy, experience being one of the poor peasant subjects under the king.
right,
Um,
right.
but one can feel the compassion, I guess, without that, or one can learn without experiencing both sides. It's just a tool that's very useful, but we're new energies now, and there's ways to work through it without that. I don't understand it completely. But I'll give you a
Yeah,
small example with the way karma works. It's not a punishment. So
right.
let's say you got three guys. One of them
Mm,
spends 10 years, when he starts his working life, he spent ten years being the mean tyrant boss who drives his employees way too hard because he's being pressured by the stockholders, right? He just
mm-hmm,
doesn't care, no
mm-hmm,
compassion, just really mean, ruthless. And then you have another guy who spent nothing but 10 years being the employee under that guy and being abused and not having not your work appreciated the way you would like to and all that and all the difficulties. And then there's a third guy who switches in his consciousness every other year. He spends 1 year being the overbearing boss, 1 year being the employee being abused, and goes back and forth. So he has 5 years of being experienced with each. Now, which of those three guys makes the best boss for that business?
mm,
The third guy, probably, who
right.
experienced both sides.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
one makes
yeah.
the best employee? The third one who experienced both
Third
sides.
one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That
So
makes
it
sense.
helps us understand and learn and grow. Yeah. And that's what
I,
karma
I
is. It's not like, oh, I'm getting you back. Now you're going to be the, but no, it's to experience both sides of it.
I love that explanation, David. Thank you so much for that. And again, so I don't monopolize your time. We hope to have you back. We hope to have you because there are so much more that you talk about as far as aliens or what the government has called non-biological, whatever they call it now, non-human biologics, and then also, I saw one I haven't got to yet where it was about mastering manifestation, but I'm so grateful for you taking the time. You answered many of the questions that my community has, and yeah, why don't you, in this moment, tell us more about the book and tell us how people can get in touch with you.
Well, the link to where to purchase it is at godtookmyclothes.com, and there's a
Yeah,
link to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all that. And it's also in French and Spanish on Amazon in paperback. And I also do spiritual counseling. There's a link at God Took My Clothes there. Now, the book's not for everybody. You don't want to spend
yeah,
$15 or whatever. So there's a 2-chapter preview. You can see if you're interested in it. And if you don't want to spend any money, you just want to ask questions. At the time of this video, I'm still answering all questions via email. So I send a voice message with a response. And some people, who just, they're not into reading or don't have the time or whatever, have over a year period sent me hours. I've sent hours of responses to questions, and I'm very happy to do that because it's very important we share, and we can't just only do things when we're getting paid. It's important to make a contribution. So I'm happy to continue doing that. And I actually enjoy
absolutely.
answering these questions. I really do. And I enjoy being on your show, James. I
I
just heard
appreciate.
go on.
No, I'll just say I appreciate it. But go ahead.
I just heard not too recently from a very trusted channeler that one of the things that's sort of being done from a spiritual perspective in humanity's drive to raise our consciousness is people like you that have these spiritual shows. I mean, they were hard to find in 2007. And now there's more
Yeah,
channels, spiritual channels, than I could keep track of, with just amazing content. I love the content on your channel. You've had psychics on and mediums, and you've talked about life elsewhere. And that's all stuff we're going to have to deal with and become
yeah.
aware of, as we grow up.
I appreciate that. It's just for me. It was in that dark time. It was teachers like yourself, NDEs, that you know again helped me become this person that I am today. Because before this, all I talked about was manifestation. Now all I talk about is ascension, and I'm hearing this, and I don't know if you are already on the path to this, but I either hear a Gaia show or a Gaia show and you consulting on another show. I don't know if that's something that's in the works, but it's something that's coming.
Okay,
If it's not
wow.
all, yeah, if
That's
it's not
kind of in
already
my
in the works,
dream. I'm hoping I get to be on Gaia.
well,
I'd be honored. I really would.
it's done. Trust me, it's done, and we got it. I can say I said it here first. We got it on tape.
Oh, wow. Thank you,
So
James. I was
yeah,
I was just recently, I did a filming last year in July for an NDE documentary, and they
okay,
showed a preview of it at the IANS conference in Arizona, I think it was this year. I wasn't there for it, but it was just like
okay,
a sneak preview showing. And I think he's going to apply for that to be on Amazon. It would probably, if that happened, it would get categorized to Gaia. So I'm wondering if that movie, and then I did another small one for film festivals, but that's not going to be a
yeah,
commercial one. I think it's going to be local. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I'll
That
say
could be
this
it.
to my
Thank you.
yeah, that could be it because it just came to me, and I'm at the point where I just know just to say what comes to me. Because we didn't go into this, but I believe that we're always channeling. This body is just a vessel.
Oh, yeah.
Everything when we have an idea, like some are channeling at the Bashar level and that, but every idea or everything that comes, we're channeling it. So I have no doubt that will come to pass. But to my listeners, I want to say thank you for being a part of this. And again, David has shown you how you can get in touch with him. And as I always say in closing, I love you and I appreciate you. And both David and I say goodbye for now. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.